On the line, I have the one and only Richard Sterban of the Oak Ridge Boys. How are you?
Well, Andy, I am doing just fine. And I have to say, it's a special privilege and a pleasure for me to be able to talk to you and to be able to talk to your fine listeners out there.
Well, we are excited. Of course, you guys are going to be at Winnevegas Casino coming up. Let's talk a little bit about this show and this tour.
Okay. Well, you know, we're excited about doing what we do. We've been doing this for a long time, as you know, and we're not young kids any longer, but we still love doing what we do. We're still having fun doing it. And, I can speak for all the guys, and I can tell you we're looking forward to coming your way. We plan to have a great time. We're going to do our best to make it a great time. And when the Oak Ridge Boys come to town, you can count on the fact that you're going to hear Elvira. You're going to hear me do Giddy Up, Papa, Mau Mau. That is the law.
Love it.
We will definitely do that. And we're going to probably our most requested song ever is Thank God for Kids. We will do that. Our first hit ever, Y'all Come Back Saloon. A lot of the hit music that you expect to hear from the Oak Ridge Boys, we will include on the show when we come to town. We are also very excited about our latest project. Produced by Dave Cobb, 17th Avenue Revival. If you know anything about the music scene here in Nashville, Dave Cobb is one of the hottest guys in town right now. In the recent years, he's become very much in demand. He does all of Chris Stapleton's stuff.
Oh.
He does Zach Brown Band. He
Yeah.
does, Jason is, and he's done a couple of projects on the Oak Ridge Boys now, including this latest project, 17th Avenue Revival. So along with all our hits, we are going to include some of this new music because it's very meaningful music. Dave Cobb wanted us to kind of tap into that feeling of going to church on this project. I remember when we first met with him, he said, I want you guys to think of Elvis. He said, I want you to think of Jerry Lee Lewis, maybe that old rockabilly sound, or some old blues like Ray Charles. He said, but what was it about those guys that made them special? He said, it's the same thing that makes you guys special. The first singing they ever did, the first music they ever played was in church. So he said, what I want to do is I want to capture that feeling of going back to church, going to an old-time revival meeting. So that's what we did on this project. It's not an all-gospel project. A lot of it's the old hymns that we grew up on as kids in singing in church and in
Sure.
Sunday school. But also some of today's contemporary writers, like Shane McAnally and Brandy Clark have a song on this project. They're two of the hottest writers in Nashville right now. Vince Gill has a song on this project. Our good friend Jamie Johnson has a song. So it's a nice mixture. It's a nice balance of like old-time rockabilly, Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis, some old-time blues mixed with shouting gospel, going to church. And it's amazing how well it has turned out. And, the music is out now, and it's very meaningful music. It's music that is affecting a lot of people's lives. So along with all the hits, we're going to do some of this new music because we're very excited about it.
Well, it sounds like it, and that's awesome, and we can't wait to hear that. And
I was going to say it was even Dave Cobb's idea to name the project 17th Avenue Revival because
Really?
we recorded the project in probably the most historic recording studio here in Nashville, RCA Studio A. They were going to tear that studio down and build high-rise condos there just a few years ago. But investors came in, people in the music business got involved. We saved the studio. So recording the project there represents the revival of that old historic recording studio. Dave Cobb has moved into Chet Atkins' old office there, and he does all of his work out of there. So it is a very special project, especially working in that old historic recording studio.
Sure. Name some of the bands that originally recorded in that studio.
Well, Elvis recorded that, sure.
That's kind of what I thought.
Dolly Parton has done most of her stuff there. I know Hank Williams years ago recorded there, and Chet Atkins actually helped develop the original Nashville sound right there in that recording studio.
Wow.
So it's a very historic place, and we're so grateful that they did not tear that place Nashville has become a city of condominiums and high-rise buildings,
Yeah.
and we're so glad that studio did not become one of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. There's so much history there.
yeah, really.
Absolutely. So, we talked a little bit about Elvis. I understand you have some ties there.
You are correct about that. For about 2 years prior to joining the Oak Ridge Boys, I sang in a group called J.D. Sumner in the Stamps Quartet. And for about a year and a half of that time, I sang with Elvis. I sang with the king of rock and roll. And back then, Elvis was the biggest star in the world. There's no question. And his tour was the biggest tour in the music business. So, being a part of it was very exciting. I have some very fond memories of the times I spent with Elvis, and I did get to know him just a little bit. So, it was a very special time in my life. And now, that many years have passed, I look back on that. I'm really grateful that I had a chance to experience that, and I had a chance to get to know, the king of rock and roll, because it was a very special time. No question about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, and a kind of interesting thing happened. While I was singing with Elvis, apparently on top of the world, I got a phone call one day from William Lee Golden of the Oak Ridge Boys. He told me on that particular day that, the bass singer in the Oak Ridge Boys wanted to leave, get off of the road, and wanted to stay home, and they wanted to know if I would be willing to take his place. So here I was singing with Elvis, apparently on top of the world, and I had to make a decision,
Wow.
And at the same time, I was a big fan of the Oak Ridge Boys, and I really felt like the Oak Ridge Boys had a great deal of potential. So I wanted to be a part of the group. So I made the decision to leave Elvis and to join the Oak Ridge Boys. And back then, a lot of people questioned how could you do that?
Sure.
How could you leave Elvis? But I really believed I was doing the right thing. And that was 47 years ago. And I think the last 47 years have been so special. That decision changed my life. It really did. And so many special things have happened to not just me personally, but all four of the Oak Ridge Boys. We've been very blessed. We have had such a great career, and I have to thank the good Lord above for allowing that all to happen. It culminated about 3.5 years ago, when we were inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. What a special thing that was for the Oak Ridge Boys.
Oh, I'll bet.
I never dreamed back when I was singing with Elvis that someday I would be in the same Hall of Fame with him. But I am. Not just me, all four of the Oak Ridge Boys were in the same Hall of Fame with Elvis, with Johnny Cash, with George Jones, Dolly Parton, the list goes on and on.
Right.
And for the Oak Ridge Boys to be there is so special. So, yes, I did make a pretty good decision back 47 years ago.
I would say so.
Yeah.
So, definitely. Now, once you joined the Oak Ridge Boys and things started to happen, how did Elvira come about?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story, but we were a struggling act, and Johnny Cash kind of helped the Oak Ridge Boys out. He came into our lives when we really needed someone, and he took us under his wing. He paid us more money than we were worth, which helped keep us going. But his words of encouragement were the most important thing. He provided inspiration when we felt like giving up. He helped us continue on, and as a result of that, we were able to meet Jim Halsey, who became our manager. And Jim Halsey, he negotiated our first recording contract with ABC Records, which later became MCA Records. We acquired the services of Ron Chancey to be our producer. Ron produced most of the Oak Ridge Boys' #1 records. Ron was a great songman. He could recognize a hit song when he heard it, and he started out finding hit songs and then producing hit songs on the Oak Ridge Boys. And we had like 10 #1 country records before Ron found Elvira for the Oak Ridge Boys, a song written by a good friend of ours, Dallas Frazier, who's a neighbor of ours. He lives right down the street. And believe it or not, Dallas Frazier got the inspiration to write that song from a street sign here in Nashville.
Really?
He was driving down the street, and he saw Elvira Street, which is located in East Nashville. And that inspired him to write Elvira, My Heart's on Fire for Elvira. And he wrote that chorus right away. So it originally was not about a girl or a woman. But then once he got home, he had realized that he had to have more of a song than just that chorus. So then he came up with the verses about my heart's on fire, about eyes that look like heaven, lips like cherry wine.
Yeah.
He came up with all that to write a complete song. But he got the original inspiration from a street sign in Nashville.
That's crazy.
But Ron Chansey found that song for us. And I remember when he played that Dallas Fraser's version of that song, we looked at each other in the studio that day and we said, wow, this may be the song that we've been looking for. And sure enough, it did become our signature song. I remember the day we recorded it. It went down so easy. It felt like a hit. The musicians in the studio were smiling. You could tell we had something special on our hands. But I don't think we realized how special it was until the first time we performed it in person. We were in Spokane, Washington for the very first time. We just threw the song in the middle of the show without saying anything about it, and the place went crazy. We had to right in the middle of the show. We had to encore that song several times. We then put it at the end of the show, had to encore it again, and for the rest of that West Coast trip, we kept getting a very similar reaction. So we called our record label, MCA Records, and said, we got something special on our hands there. We have to get this thing out. And so sure enough, we released it. And to this very day, it's still one of the largest selling single records to ever be recorded in Nashville, And it's our signature song, and you can count on the fact that we will do it when we come to town.
Very good, very good. One last thing I wanted to ask you. I know you guys were part of a solemn affair for President Bush's funeral. I wanted to know what it was like to be a part of that.
Well, we established a friendship with President Bush many years ago. We first met him when he was the vice president of the United States, and Ronald Reagan was the president at the time. Ronald Reagan invited the Oak Ridge Boys to sing at the Congressional Barbecue on the lawn of the White House. And I remember that day we were doing a sound check during the afternoon. While we were doing the sound check, we saw this entourage of men walking across the lawn towards the stage. They came up on the stage. Right in the middle was this tall, lanky gentleman. He introduced himself as Vice President George Bush. He did not have to do that. We recognized him immediately, of course. But he proceeded to tell us that day. He said, fellas, I am a big fan. I cannot be at the concert tonight. He had to fly to China, I think, for some official vice presidential business. But he said, since I cannot be at the concert, would you guys be willing to do a couple of songs for me right here, right now? We said, sure, Mr. Vice President. Tell us what you would like to hear. And then he started naming songs, but he did not name hits. He started naming album cuts.
Wow.
So we realized then that he really was a true fan.
Yeah.
And so we proceeded to give him a little mini concert right there that afternoon. And that day, we established a friendship with him that lasted for about 35 years.
Wow.
We got to know him and his wonderful wife, Barbara Bush. Forget politics. They are two of the nicest people you will ever want to meet in your life.
Yeah.
They were special people. After they left the White House, we maintained the friendship with them. Many times we would go to their place up in Kennebunkport, where they would spend their summers. And we would, the four of us and our four wives, we would hang out with them for 2 or 3 days at a time. We would give them private concerts in their living room,
Wow.
And he always requested his favorite song, Amazing Grace. And not too long before he died, he asked us if we would sing Amazing Grace at his funeral. And so we said, sure, Mr. President, you can count on us. We will be there, And, death never comes at a convenient time.
Right.
we were in Spokane. Once again, here comes Spokane, Washington, the same place where we recorded Elvira. But we were doing a Christmas show in Spokane, Washington. And afterwards, we had to go from the stage to the airport, and we got on a private jet that was donated to us by a very dear friend. And we flew to Houston, got there just in time to go to the hotel, take a quick shower, go to the church. We talked with George W. Bush and Jeb Bush, President's two sons, and they thanked us for doing this for their father. And we sang Amazing Grace at the church at President Bush's funeral, went back to the airport, flew back to Kennewick, Washington, and did another Christmas show that night.
Wow.
We did all of that without any sleep, but and we never missed a show. But the most important thing is we kept our promise to President Bush. He always taught us to do the right thing, and we believe that was the right thing to do. And it was a tremendous honor and a very emotional experience, to say the least. And not too many people get to sing at the funeral of a president of the United States, but we were honored to do so. We really were.
Man, that's awesome. It was so much of my pleasure to be able to talk to you for these few minutes, just to get a glimpse into the world of the Oak Ridge Boys. You have entertained me for the last 15 minutes just unbelievably.
Well, thank you, sir. I kind of ramble on and on. I hope you were able to follow me.
I followed great. It was wonderful.
Okay, good.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and we look forward to the big show.
Well, we're looking forward. And before I run, let me speak for all the Oak Ridge Boys one more time. Tell you, we are looking forward to coming your way. We're going to do all the hits as you expect to hear, including Elvira. We're going to, do new music produced by Dave Cobb. But just in general, we're going to have a great night of good country music, good family entertainment. We're going to do our best to make it a great night. And so we want to encourage you to come on out, spend some time with the Oak Ridge Boys.
Sounds great. Thanks so much, Richard. This was a pleasure.
Thank you. And I'm sorry about the difficulty we had yesterday. But
it's all right.
I'm glad we were still able, and I hope your car is okay.
It is. It's working good today.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
All right. Thank you, sir.
You bet.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.